Well, I have been looking forward to this interview. It is, I'm titling this one Understanding Men. Those of you who are watching on Instagram, you can shout out your city and state. Those watching on YouTube, on the replay, comment replay, I love to see when people check in. And of course, I always want to know what you think. Uh, Friend of mine who knows he knows what I like and how I get down, and he said you're gonna like this guy, and true enough, I absolutely did. And he came on with the Bulls hat. I love it. I love it. I was living outside Chicago when Jordan is at like the height, so I'm a big
Oh yeah,
fan. How are you, sir?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm already cheesing because I know it's about to be litty, as the young people say.
I've never heard that word before, so it must be young people saying that.
Oh my God, it's so funny. My kids would be like, just leave the vernacular to us, mom. We got this.
Yeah.
As they would say, cringe. But anyway, okay, so so excited to have you. Really, 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 really jazzed for this conversation because I am obsessed with your content. I love the way you break things down. And I know that a lot of women are like me. We want to understand men. It's like going to a zoo and staring through the glass. Like, how does this creature work? And a lot
Uh,
of us have good intentions and we want to know how to, love and care for the guy, but we don't get it. So I
yeah.
am really, really pumped. I give people a chance to come in, say hi, shout out their area so that we can get as many people in before we hit the ground running because I have a lot of stuff to talk about. See, she said your content is fire, so we already
Yeah.
got some good stuff. Where are you guys tuning in from? We got Brooklyn. Cool, my people know the drill. We got Brooklyn in the house. Where else do we have checking in? Let's get some love. How are you feeling tonight, sir?
Oh, I'm good. I'm excited for this, and then excited to watch the finals tonight after we're done.
Oh, that would be a basketball thing.
Yeah, the NBA
Okay,
finals. Yeah.
okay. I don't keep up with sports, as you can
Yeah,
tell.
we're a big basketball family. My wife played high school basketball, and both of my boys played, and so it's just kind of that thing that we all sit and watch together, and so yeah,
Nice,
it's fun.
nice, nice. Well, I will try not to keep you too long.
No, I've got it DVR'd, so that way we can fast forward through the
Yes,
commercials.
yes. I'm
Yeah,
okay. I'm all
yeah,
about that. Very cool, very cool.
yeah.
So I literally have a whole tight list of things that I want to talk about, and so
Awesome.
I'm gonna try to go as fast as I can because I was going through your content and I'm like, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this. Oh, I want to talk about this. So we'll see how
Yeah.
much we can pack in. All right, guys. So we are officially going to get started. Oh, we got Tampa in the house. We got Maryland, two Marylands, Pennsylvania, Philly, ooh, Toronto, Colorado. She said, "You seem really excited." I am. I was like a little kid all day waiting for tonight because this is going to be interesting conversation.
Oh, I'm pumped. Yeah, for sure.
So I've entitled this titled this live stream "Understanding Men" because I want to do my best to help women understand what's going on in the mind of a man. We're going to get to this quote later, but you had me cracking up when you were talking about the boxes. So you and I will know what we're talking about, but
Oh yeah,
people will see later, okay? And you were just like saying, "What are you thinking about?" Literally nothing. So this is going to be
yeah,
fun. All right. So the reason why I want to, she said, don't hold back. I like that. The reason why I want to get into this is because I have noticed, and I believe that you expressed this as well. There are few resources out there for men, and I used to think that it was because men weren't interested, in self help per se. But then I thought about it, and out of the two genders, women tend to be more spenders, more, I was gonna say an adjective, but more
yeah.
compulsive, I'll say it, compulsive spenders. And
Sure.
so the people who are producing content, they're obviously want to return on their investment, so they're not even going to produce stuff if they feel like one or the other isn't going to buy it. So I've actually had professionals tell me, who were advising me, stick to content for women because that's how you're going to get the most bang for your buck. And I've heard
Uh,
people like, well, I won't name names, other high prominent people have decided to stick with women because that's where the money is. But as a
yeah,
result, there is a lack of educational content for men. I looked at the
yes.
stat, it said 64% of books are purchased by women. So we are out here trying to
Well,
understand
well, you
relationships,
can tell
understand.
that's not me.
Exactly. Exactly. So we are going to pick your brain and then hand it to the women.
Let's
So
do it.
most of this is going to be geared towards the ladies, but guys, I'm pretty sure you can co-sign. All right, really quickly, as I launched into it, can you give a little 1-2 minute backstory? Feel free to shout out your page and just let people know like who are you, why do you care about helping men, yada yada yada.
Yeah, so I really haven't ever been a big social media consumer. Um, I've started writing in January of this past year on Instagram. I started my own business in 2011, and basically I've been semi-retired since I was 35, and so that was 3 years ago. And the last 3 years have just kind of been, I don't know, recovering from, it was a lot of work to do all that for so long. And so as a young man, I didn't really feel prepared for like what it was like. And so me and my buddies used to joke when we were leaving college, when we were about to leave college, like, is there like a handbook that our dads give us when we get married? Because it's like, my dad knew how to do everything. He knew how to change a tire, he knew how to build a deck, and it's like there's nothing that I could throw at him that it's like he wasn't ready for.
Mm-hmm.
And as a young man, I was like, dude, I'm about to get married. My wife is going to expect me to be like on that level, and I'm like, I'm not even. I don't even have training wheels yet. Like I have no idea.
Yes.
And so for me, especially when I found out I was having a son, I just really started kind of just thinking about manhood and what it meant to be a man, because there wasn't like a model to follow. Like dads tend to teach us, if you have a dad at all, they tend to teach you certain skills maybe, but they don't teach you like how to be a man, how to feel like a man. They don't teach you about, things like virtue. And so that like there's a lot of men that are men
Yeah.
by like on paper, but they don't feel like it because
Mm.
there's never been anybody like welcome them into like manhood. And I think men do the same. It's kind of like women always comparing themselves to someone who's more beautiful. There's always somebody
Mm.
that's more beautiful on Instagram than you. So you never feel beautiful on your own because
Right.
you have these ideals of perfection that you're comparing yourself to. And if you do that, you're just never going to live up to that. Like nobody's
Right.
going to feel good enough. I think men do that as far as like, am I man enough? Because there's always some dude
Mm.
that's tougher or has bigger muscles or a nicer car or whatever. And so at no point is there like this moment where you're like, okay, I've made it.
I've
I'm
arrived.
actually
Yeah.
I'm actually a man, And so I think a lot of men just haven't ever had that, initiation into being a man, to where they have that deep down like knowledge, like I know that I am a man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with a lot of women, they have that happen when they have their first child. It's
Yes.
hard not to feel like a woman when you have a kid. Like you've
Right.
gone through this hormonal thing and something happens with your body. Like men don't have like this moment, and so for me, it was something that I started trying to figure out on my own. And I'm a big note taker, and so I started an Evernote in my phone when I was like 25, once I found out I was having kids. And as I learned something that I wanted to make sure to teach my son, and I have two boys now,
Mm.
I would just keep a note of like, I want to make sure to teach him this, and I want to make sure to teach him this. And a lot of it, they're still not old enough for me to explain to them
Right.
because they're 13 and 11 now. And so we're just now getting into some really basic, you know, deep sort of stuff about being a man. And so for me, a lot of the source of the content that I write is just those lessons that I've learned, just as I've kept things, notes in Evernote. The relationships piece is actually really funny how that came about, because I never intended to write about relationships.
And you're so good at
Um,
it.
well, I guess so, apparently, but
The world says so.
yeah. So on Valentine's Day, I'd written, if you go back to my content, like I was writing just like very like dry, like how-to stuff, like how to have confidence or whatever. And on Valentine's Day, I felt like I needed to write something to my wife. And so I just wrote this post called "Her Radiance is Your Responsibility." And it was literally just 2 slides and then a bunch of pictures of her.
Yeah.
And it was for her. And I wrote that poem or whatever that was in that post about how, you can tell a woman has been loved well when she becomes more beautiful with age. Because there's like this internal, And I think as men, for me, where that came from was like I didn't know anything I do. I want to be really good at it, but
Yeah.
like, what does it mean to be a good husband? Like that's yeah, everybody. I wouldn't say everybody, but I think most men when they get married, they want to be good at it, but
Mm.
there's no defined way. What does that mean? You know,
Right.
and so I just kind of came up with. I looked around at people in their 60s and 70s that I was familiar with, and all the women. There were the vast majority of women kind of had this. They almost looked like empty husks, like they were just beaten up and tired, and but there were a few women. It's like they were almost still youthful, even though they
Right.
were in
Like
their
vibrant.
60s and
Yeah.
yes, and the common thread, like the only thing I could figure out that was different about them is that they had husbands that obviously really, really cherished them. It was more than just like I'm going to give you money or whatever. It was like the
Right.
husband like really had a lot of like tenderness and
Yes.
respect and care,
Kind of like a
and it was just
flower,
yeah, it's like he
neglected
tended.
versus, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a great way to put it. And so that's just kind of, I wrote that whole piece that I wrote in that poem or whatever you want to call that. I wrote that in Evernote 12 years ago, like my
Wow.
goal. And that's just kind of like, it's not something that I live by because I'm a human being, but it's just kind of what I keep coming back to of like, am I doing a good job or not? If I look at her and she seems like she's not radiant, it means she's stressed out. She's anxious. She's carrying too much,
Right.
and that is like my kind of. I think men in a lot of ways can be really dense, and so for me, like that's just like something really simple that I can look at, and it's like a north star to say, am I
Right.
on track or not? And if I look at her and I can see that she doesn't have that radiance, and I'm like, that's what lets me know I need to jump in and do something. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's just as simple as giving her a hug or listening to
Mm-hmm.
her. But it's just that's just kind of what I do to try to remind myself of like, am I on target with my goal?
Yeah.
You know,
I love that. I was thinking back when you were saying about, guys, even if they have a dad, and looking at the dynamic between men and women. And for whatever reason, I just had this image conjured up of fishing. And you think of two guys fishing, they're not going to be gabbing away, comparing notes. It's just kind of like, you know, you got a beer, you got a sandwich. Okay. And
yeah.
even when it's so funny because I was even looking at, um, business, right? I said to my husband, I was like, why is it that men go golfing to do business or maybe like a racquetball game or whatever? Women, we don't go meet at the nail salon, but it's because I think we don't require activities because we just go
Yes.
straight heart to heart. So
Yeah.
men, it's like we just spent 6, 7 hours on a golf course and we've maybe said 12 sentences between the group.
Well, what happens is that when it comes to men talking, you got to be sneaky about it. So if you're playing basketball or you're playing golf, you'll end up talking about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But if you said, "Hey, let's go talk," they're like, "Ew, no, we got to have
Yes.
something to do." But but what happens is we do talk. The reason you can't talk while you're fishing is because the fish can hear you and it scares them away. With golf, you'll ride around and you'll actually talk, and
Okay.
after,
Okay.
yeah, guys talk. It's just you almost can't. You have to pretend like you're not. Like you got to sneak it up on people, where
Like,
it's
look
like
over
you got to.
here.
It's like a magic trick. Like, hey, look over here, and I'm going to get you talking. Um,
I love that.
So
And
yeah.
I think that it doesn't, I don't know about men, but with women, we talk a lot about our feelings. You mentioned this in your content too, where men don't sit around talking about feelings. They punch
No.
each other. They wrestle. I mean, not grown men, obviously, but like you're punching each other as kids and wrestling around. And even if something happens, you might just fight, like physically fight, and then it squashes it. You're not actually sitting there going, bro, it really struck a chord, and
Mm,
you're not unpacking it. So we come into relationships expecting,
yeah.
well, we both are the same age, so we should both have the same emotional intelligence levels. And
Hmm.
as I'm realizing, just by the way you guys are wired, we're coming at this wrong.
Well,
So,
and what's funny is one thing I've noticed is that men do want to talk about their feelings. Not all men, but a lot. It's just they don't want to go first. So,
mm,
like
amongst guys, you mean, or
amongst guys,
okay,
yeah.
okay,
Like if like guys are always kind of judging who the alpha is, like in any given room. you kind of know who, like, I'm a confident guy. I've had some success or whatever, but like if I was in a room with like Michael Jordan, I wouldn't try to dominate the conversation. I'd be like, you're the big dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I was in the
Yeah.
room with, Elon Musk or, I wouldn't try to take over the business meeting. Like, and
Right.
so men kind of are always gauging, and, a
Mm.
lot of men in the space will be like, oh, I'm the alpha. I never, whatever. It's like, dude, if you're on Tom Brady's football team, you would not walk in and start telling Tom Brady how to play football. Give me a break.
Right.
Like
Right.
that, you would know your place and you would fall into line of that pecking order. So, I've found that, especially when I'm in a room or like on Instagram where people kind of where men kind of see me as being like the one that's kind of at the top of the pecking order. If I go first and I start talking about something that I'm struggling with or something that I've dealt with that's hard or whatever, it's like immediately men go, "Oof," and they do start talking.
Mm.
I think a
Okay.
lot of men want to. It's just it's not cool, especially
Yes.
when we're in school and stuff. You got to pretend like you don't. And so the way we go about doing it is punching each other. And we're still aggressive. I'm not saying men sit
Right.
around and talk about their feelings all day, but I think a lot of it is just like this social pressure where
Yes.
you think other dudes don't care or other dudes, don't want to talk about their feelings. And we never want to talk about our feelings to the extent that women do. It's like, let's get it over with. It's like a procedure,
Let's find a
it's like,
solution quick.
yeah, exactly. But there are a lot of things that once you start opening up, if a man's got a lot bottled up, it's really surprising. And I don't know that women will ever even see that side of it because I don't know that a
Hmm.
man will open up that way to a woman.
Right.
But as far as peer to peer, it's way more common than I think a lot of people think. It's just, in the context of what I wrote in that post, like if you're a 22-year-old woman marrying a 22-year-old man, like while you and your friends were working through drama and being petty and talking bad about each other and reconciling and explaining why your feelings were hurt or whatever, dudes are out there playing football.
Yeah.
Like our football coaches weren't telling us how to work through this stuff. And so we just have had zero practice doing that.
Yes.
And so I think it's important for women to realize, when a man gets into a relationship, you know, you need to assume that he has the emotional maturity of like a 12, where you were when you were 12, because he's
Hmm.
not gone through the social interactions where you've worked through
Yeah.
those things in a verbal way. And so he doesn't even know how to articulate what he's feeling. And I think that's where a lot of my writing comes in. Is one of the most common things that I get from men is like, man, you're just saying what I feel. I just didn't know how to say
How
it.
to say it. Yes, I'll get that
Yeah.
too, where they're like, it's like you're able to speak what I couldn't get out. I was going to say this too. Somebody brought up this conversation, and I like to always challenge my way of thinking. It's funny because,
Absolutely.
people will assume, oh, you just always want to be right. And I'm like, that's not how I got to where I am. But
Yeah.
somebody was talking about how, you women want men to be emotional. But if we really opened up and shared, you guys wouldn't like it. And at first, my initial reaction was
Yeah.
like, no, I would want an emotional. But then I
Mm-hmm.
thought about it. There is
Mm-hmm.
an extent to which we expect a man to repress and hold in, because just like if you had somebody who was protecting you, like let's say if it was a security guard or something like that, I would not want the security guard, if he was afraid, to be like, oh my God, I'm so scared. It's my first time using my
Exactly.
weapon. I'd be like, yeah, keep that to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Well,
think,
and one of the things that I plan on writing about, I don't know like what post I would write about it in, was like would be, women want the man to know everything about them, because they want to feel like they're fully seen and fully, and and you love all of me, even my ugly parts that I might not be able to show to other people. They
mm,
want that, right? And so they want to open up like that to the man, and men need to allow that because that's important for a woman to feel that comfort level of trust and vulnerability and softness where she can just fully be herself and be seen and,
right.
and loved for exactly who she is. So where women make the mistake is that they want the man to reciprocate that.
We want
um,
everything the same, everything.
exactly. And what you don't realize is part of being a protector, if you will, is like, I'm the foundation of the house. Okay. If I shake, the whole house shakes,
Yes.
whether that's fair or not. And so what I have to do is, if I need to shake, I need to go do that with other men.
Yeah,
That
I
that
love
they can
that.
help hold that they can help hold me up when I'm weak, that they can help stabilize me, you know, and because there's no way for me to rely on her that doesn't also make her feel less safe.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yes.
And so women want men to do the same thing, because they're like, oh, I want you to know how much I love you. So I want you to know that I can see all of you. And it's like,
Yes.
on paper, that's a great sentiment, but in
Just doesn't
reality,
work in reality.
it can't. And I don't think women necessarily do it on purpose. It's more of like
Right.
structural, like,
Mm-hmm.
like if it's like a tree, like if the trunk wiggles, the branches are going to wiggle. You can't
Yes.
help it, right? It's
Yes.
nobody's fault. And so I think that's where there's a lot of misunderstandings, where men do need support. I just, if I have to lean on my wife, it costs her something. It costs her sense of
Yes.
safety. And
And
there are times where I've leaned on my wife. I'm not
yeah.
saying this is like a universal thing, but it's not something you want to get into habit with as a man or a woman, because there are some things that it's safer. Like, if there are wolves at the door,
Mm-hmm.
I want y'all to stay in here and play
Right.
and not know any. And I'm going to go out there. I'm going to shut the door behind me, and I'm going to go fight those battles. And
Yeah.
I don't want y'all to be worried about me the whole time,
Right.
because that would interrupt your sense of safety. That would interrupt your sense of peace and all that. Like, that's my job as a man, is not to just go fight the battles, but for you to not necessarily even know about the battles if it means it's going to cost you
Yes.
your sense of security, your sense of peace, your sense of stability, all those things. It's my job to go fight that battle outside while
Yes.
you and the kids watch cartoons.
And
So,
I think that we take it personally because it seemed like, I think subconsciously we as women see it as, I must not seem like a safe landing place if you can't
mm-mm,
tell me. That's how we perceive it. But the
yeah,
reality is, it is that beautiful shielding. I did not understand the pressure that my husband was under. He would get up every morning at the crack of dawn, go out and do all this stuff, and the man never complained. But I realized later that if he did complain, even though it would make me feel like I was close to him, it would make me feel kind of nervous if there were months that it was really tight, or what have you.
mm-hmm.
So I think it's really important. Somebody asked the question, what if he doesn't have other men to lean on? I think that it's important to actively seek people out,
men
because
men
yeah.
have to seek it out. Like, you have to just reach out to a man and say that whether it's a friend, and I think men just could use a little bit more trust in their instincts, kind of like women do.
Hmm.
To where it's like, as a man, if you're around a man that you work with, or you know even if it's somebody online, like, if you feel like something on the inside, like, I feel like I could confide in that dude.
Right.
Like, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Like, I'm one of those guys that I want to help as much as I can, but if you don't message me and let me know you're hurting or you're struggling, then there's no way. I'm not just going to randomly message one of my followers and be like, hey bro, you need
Right.
anything,
Right.
and so you kind of have to take that initiative, and you have to kind of trust your instincts as far as,
Hmm.
like, is this a man that I feel like is going to be receptive to that, and there's not really necessarily, like a way I could tell all men, like, here's how to know it when you see it. Um, I just think there's, there's a certain feeling that you get,
Right.
and I think, there's different ways, like, as a man, like, on some level, as a man, I think what's really important for women to understand is, like, part of what I need my wife to see me as being more than I actually am,
Hmm.
because I know who I really am. I know when I fail. I know when I'm insecure. I know when, I've whatever, right? Like, we all know ourselves better than anybody else knows us, and we're all very aware of our flaws. And so for me, like, her view of me gives me something to aspire to,
I was going to say it
right?
propels you, so to speak, because it's like,
Exactly.
I want to meet that level that she
Yeah,
sees me at.
it gives me
Yeah.
something to strive toward. And so if I'm constantly telling her about all my flaws and my failures, it's like I'm undermining what I need to strive for in the first place, And so
Yes.
there's a way that the woman can, I need her support in a lot of ways.
Right.
There's just a few areas that it tears apart more of like the foundational fabric of like this ideal that makes us better. You know,
Yes.
like there are ways that she supports me that absolutely make me better. But her knowing about all of my mistakes and flaws and insecurities and worries, that does not make me better. It makes me feel like I'm failing her.
I want to
You know.
really touch upon that, what you just said, because it's actually a lot deeper than it probably seems on the surface. So the way that a man functions, and correct me if you would word this differently, but a man works with goals. He's very goal oriented. It's kind of like when you do that rock climbing or whatever, you put your hammer in and then you
Mm-hmm.
get to that next spot and then you put the next hammer or whatever the tool is called. And so when a man needs to constantly have this goal, which is why I think it's so hard for men when they retire, because they're like, what goal am I going after now? So if
Yeah.
the woman keeps seeing him at level 6, but he's at level 5, it instinctively makes him want to go to level 6.
We live up, exactly. We live
And
up
then if
to it.
she goes, man, I think you could be at level 7, then he starts instinctively going. And I think
Mm-hmm.
this is the part that we lose with this whole rhetoric that men and women are the same. It actually hurts us because there are two different ways to interact. The same way with a man and a woman. If a man is
Mm-hmm.
thinking like a man and he's like, I don't need a lot of coddling, I don't need a lot of Gucci Gucci goo, then he might look at the woman and think the same thing. Your words give us life. Like you said, it just turns this
Exactly.
light on, and just acknowledging, you did your hair differently, or a
Mm-hmm.
little smack on the butt, or oh, okay, he still thinks I'm cute.
Yeah.
That what
Yeah.
maybe for you it's not a big deal, but for a woman it's like, oh my God,
Absolutely.
So we have to really respect our differences, but not resent them, but find a
Oh
way to
yeah.
be compatible.
I
Okay,
mean,
so
it's like, to me, a lot of it is just very basic. I think so much of the stuff we talk about is just noise that confuses us. Like there is no corollary for life where everybody is the same. Like on a football team, that doesn't mean you all play. There's 11 quarterbacks out there. Like
right,
it's like we all have different strengths and weaknesses. Like the quarterback has to do one job, the offensive lineman has to do another. You don't switch every other play just so that it's
right,
even, like, and so I
right.
think, there's just like, we can all be football players. Like we can all be equal. That doesn't mean that we have the same talents or the same
Right.
gifts or like,
Can you imagine the 400
there's so,
pound guy being the quarterback and then the little
ex-
175-pound guy being the
But
linebacker? And
in
you're like,
so many ways, like expecting a man to think or behave like a woman is just as silly, and vice versa. Like there's nothing wrong with a man being wired differently and having different needs than a woman.
mm,
Like there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make one stronger or weaker, or
right,
it doesn't mean that like the offensive lineman is a bad football player. Like
right,
he's a football player. He's great
right.
at the job that he was built to do, and
Yeah.
I think the fact that we've got all these weird, like, it's like I think we just need to take a step back and look at it more objectively. Like in a business, there's some people that are gifted at marketing and sales, and so to me, it has nothing to do with like the man or the woman or whatever. It's just about like, who does it come most naturally
Yes.
to do this thing? What do we actually respond to? Not versus not what should we respond to, but what
Hmm.
actually makes us better?
Yeah.
What actually makes us work better together? How do we
Yeah.
complement each other and bring out the best parts of each other? Instead of expecting, it's stupid for me to demand that my wife be great at something I'm already great at. Why would I
Just
do that?
because.
That's
Just
what I'm
because.
for,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
vice versa. Like,
Hmm.
that's just, to me, it's just silliness. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like, we don't do that in any other, we wouldn't run a business that way. We wouldn't run a football team that way. Like in any organization where there's multiple people involved, you automatically
That's
go to
so
like,
true.
what who does what parts best, what's
Right.
easiest, what's most natural, what fits your talents, and how to, and as as a manager, like, you have to manage different people differently
Hmm.
based on how they're motivated. And to me, it's the same way in a relationship. Like, there's nothing wrong. I've got 7 employees. There's nothing wrong with any one of my employees that one of them needs more attention versus one of them needs more accountability versus one of them needs more
Hmm.
oversight versus one of them needs more encouragement. Like, it doesn't make any of them better or worse than each other.
Right.
It's just a fundamental understanding and acceptance of, like, this is what works for them.
Yeah.
And to me, I think that's where we've gotten lost in a lot of these conversations when it comes to a relationship, is really just like, Yeah, and worst case scenario, the marketing person at my business might have to do some computer programming one day. Okay, if that happens, then they can step up and probably do it. But until
Right.
it's absolutely necessary, let's just stick with what's easy
And
and
what's
what
working.
works.
Yes. No, it's so true. And that's been this big lie that if something is different, it has to be bad. There has to be a conspiracy. There has to be. I want to
Yeah.
talk about um uh I did
Uh-oh.
this reel. I know. I did this reel and I am so tired. I'm still a little triggered, I'm not gonna lie. There's this notion that the choices that women have, this is like a total detour, okay? So transitioning here.
I'm ready for it. Let's go.
Okay. It's there's this rhetoric that if a man isn't masculine, or if a man isn't masculine, it's a woman's issue. And this is what I mean by this. I have the guys who have no masculine energy. I mean, effeminate, not effeminate like this, but effeminate, and it's just they don't have that. I don't know what you
Yeah.
call it, but we all know it's right.
Yeah.
They don't have it. So then they go, "Oh, women just want thugs," and the women are like, I,
No.
I want you to have a little testosterone. That does not mean I need you slinging drugs in the corner or shooting people out of a car. Like
Yeah.
this idea that our only choices are um, are nerds or socially awkward men or criminals. And this is the
Mm-hmm.
thing that's so frustrating. Just to set this up. People say, well, out of the two, if they're both bad, out of the two, why do people keep picking the thugs? And I say, well, if you actually put a gun to someone's head and said you had to pick one of the two, people are going to pick the thug because he seems more macho. He seems more, hey, ride or die,
Well, and it's like at a primal level,
primal. That
if you
thank you.
really boil it down, and and I try to use analogies that don't even make anybody feel personally attacked. Like just look at like a pride of lions, like the female lions are going to pick the strongest lion because it gives their children, their babies, the best chance of survival. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Like that is at the fundamental core of like way down deep in like the middle of the onion of a woman is like she's
Right.
going if there's no other choice, if all the other layers are gone and there's no other choice, I'm going to pick the one that is going to be
The
most
most
likely to
important.
be able to protect
Yeah.
my offspring
Yeah.
and defend our territory. Like if we
Mm-hmm.
think that we've evolved past those primal things, then we're just not paying attention. Like
It's the
they're
same thing
still
with
there. But
right. It's the same thing with the women who say, "Gosh, I wish personality mattered more." And I'm like, I don't care how evolved the guy is. He still has two of these things, and he can see you. So might want to put a brush through your hair, or put a lip gloss on your chapped lips because he's visual.
mm,
The excuse, what I don't like is the excuse that women just pick badly. And what I'm saying is there should be a third option, which is the actual healthy option. So you have a
well,
lack of masculine energy and then toxic masculine energy. And the middle is the healthy, well balanced guy, which is what I see you emulating. I see you
uh,
having, like, you don't seem like a hothead who's ready to fight just because someone looks your way. You don't seem like a pansy who's going to run if someone flinches. You're in the middle using your brain and only your brawn if necessary, but you're also not neglecting the brawn. Braun, shout out to the gym. So can you
yeah,
can you talk to that? Because this whole thing, we've been having this conversation for like the last 48 hours. And
yeah,
people are acting like women should just be like, oh, as long as he's book smart, I'll take him. When this guy is
yeah.
like, big, thick Coke bottle glass, like Urkel type. Like, really?
Hmm.
This is all we're getting?
Well, I
This guy?
think I think that's all we see. That's all we see portrayed. If we haven't had, you know, if we haven't had father figures or anybody actually emulating a balanced manhood,
Right.
then it's kind of like all we really know to do. Like it's easy to see, the color white and say, well, I don't like that, so I know for sure I'm just going to go with black.
Right.
And you see that happen all the time with parents where it's like, oh, my dad was really hard on me, so
Right. The pendulum just,
the pendulum just goes too far the other direction. And
yes.
so I think what you're seeing are two ends of the extreme of masculinity. And that's what I try to do with my page is like I'll write a post that's like hyper masculine, and like
Right.
I have to hold myself back. Like I can get pretty hot headed. um
Me too,
but
though.
I mean I can really go there.
I had to tone it
But
down on my
like,
page.
yeah, so I'll write something that's hyper masculine, because it's like I'm not just gonna write soft stuff,
Right.
because I get pumped up by the same stuff that dudes get pumped up about. Like
Yeah.
I was a college athlete. Like like I've done all the guy stuff. I love that stuff, but at the same time, like there's more to it than
There's
just
multifaceted. Yeah.
there's multifaceted. And I think that's what I try to do is like, I, I try to get the attention of one group with a hyper masculine post, and then I'll write something about how like, here's empathy is important too,
Right.
and to pretend like empathy is never important. It's like, what do you think a head football coach is using when he's getting into the mind of his opposing head coach?
Yes.
Empathy.
Yes.
Like there's a lot of tactical uses for empathy that men are like, oh, I just don't empathy's for losers. It's like if you let it control you,
Right.
it's soft. But if you use it as a tool, it can make you really, really dangerous.
Yeah.
It can give you a skill set that your brawn by itself can't accomplish on its own.
I'm going to give
Right?
you a quick shout out really quick. Please don't lose your thought. Men, if you are not succeeding with women, if you're not succeeding in life, you're not having the results that you want, please follow this man's page. I told you guys, I don't like people coming for me, so I backed off on giving masculine because it's like you're a girl. How can you give? So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, fine. I'll just pretend like I don't know what I know. Follow him. He is a whole man, a manly man. He has a whole wife, two boys. So
Yeah.
follow him. And ladies, he gives a lot of tips. I'm so caught up in this conversation. I haven't even gotten to the stuff for girls. I have ladies. I have all the stuff I want to talk about. So I will transition to that in a second.
Yeah.
But please follow him because he gives very specific examples, very generous. Every single post practically is like a little miniature booklet. So
Yeah.
very, very generous. But
It's very long form, and that's what I think part of the reason that you see those extremes is that we're just kind of grabbing snippets of like, oh, this is manhood in two sentences, and like guys don't have anything else to go off of, and they're like, all girls want thugs. It's like, let's explore the
what
reasoning, like
parts
what we
of
just talked about. And it's
yes,
like, how can you grab that if you're the nerdy type? Like, how can you grab that and say, oh, okay, I get it now.
literally
There's
what
a
my book
fundamental
is.
thing. Yeah.
Yes,
And so let's
these are
go
the things.
grab. Don't give up because you failed
Right.
with a few girls and think, oh, I'm never going to be a thug, And I'm using that word because you use that word. I would never personally use that
I
word,
know.
but like you go grab the bits and pieces of like, why did you fail with that woman? Oh, well, it's because that man made her feel safer or more protected or whatever. So I need to stay me, but I need to add that to my game. I need to figure out that piece. And okay, I'm gonna go take a class on boxing or Brazilian jiu-jitsu or whatever, if that's what you feel like you're missing. And that's all we are, is just we just keep adding pieces.
Ooh.
That, and it's almost modular. Like okay, you realize you're missing an important piece, you go out and add that piece on,
Go
and over
get it.
time,
Don't cry
that's
about
how
it.
and on the flip side, you've got the extreme man that the woman dates the guy that's
I know.
toxically masculine. Well,
Yes.
what's going to happen with him is that likely you're going to get divorced
Yep.
because he's not going to know how to get along and coexist with anybody, and you're going to lose your kids, and you're going to lose all this stuff. So what you probably need to do is you probably need to look at it and say, why are these other men having successful marriages?
Yes.
Oh, that dude has empathy, or
You better
that dude
preach.
is willing to admit that he's wrong, or there's a time to be hyper masculine, but
Yes.
there's not a time for anything to be all the time. Like
All the time. Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with being horny, but if you're horny 24/7, you're not going to
Thank
get anything
you.
else done. Like, you could apply that logic to literally everything. Like,
Everything. Yep.
if I was like fully masculine 24/7, I would be like just a sexual murder bot. Like, there would be nothing but
Yeah.
attacking and conquesting and like all this. Like I have times where
We're
I'm
gym
not
and
in
sex
my
and eating.
masculines.
Right.
Sometimes I'm just laying here doing nothing. I'm not in anything. I'm in I'm hibernating.
It's so balanced. And this
You
is
know?
why literally
Yeah.
like the vein will start to pop out because I try to explain this so I'm blue in the face. And I'm like, I don't understand. Somebody even bought my book. I had one person be upset after buying my book. Usually people are like, I love your book. One guy bought it and he's like, I wanted it to be this. I said, so you went in with a mindset of what you wanted me to say,
Like, that's not how you take in information. You take in information with an open mind, take the meat, spit out the bones if you think there are bones. But he wanted it to be something else. And so I called my book Why Women Love Assholes. And I did it intentionally because everybody wants to complain about that. And my thing is this, I say, first of all, it's an unhealthy woman who likes the asshole because her primal
Yes.
part of her is attracted, but the developed part of her brain goes, oh, upon further investigation,
Yeah.
I
If
realize
you
he's
play
not
that out, if you play
right.
that out and project it into an actual day-to-day future, then it doesn't work. And for me, here's the thing. It's like, I think the easiest way that I've come up with to explain this distinction is like, when I leave the house, I need to leave the house with like my game face on. Like I'm going out to do battle for my family.
Right.
And I'm going to go be, hyper masculine if I need to go accomplish my objectives. Okay. But that part of me is uncivilized and it's not easy to get along with. And, there's a lot of downsides to that.
Yeah.
When it comes to, it's like anything, like it's a double-edged sword. I cannot take that same mindset and bring it into my home because my wife
Yeah.
and my kids are not my enemies. They're not something to go they're not something to go conquer. There's something to
Yes.
nurture. There's something to encourage. There's something to love. And so I think if there's one easy takeaway, I would say that it's more complicated than this, but like be like, what do they say? Be a lady in the streets, but a freak in the sheets or whatever. It's like, be an alpha man in the streets, but be like a teddy bear in the house.
And that's what
Like you
women
need
think
to
is so
understand.
sexy. They're like, I got the
Yeah,
softer side of Sears. I'm going to show my age with the Sears reference. They even have Sears anymore. But it's like the woman loves this idea that, and I liken it to a lion because a lion is like the best analogy to me for a masculine man. It's like a lion that she has tamed. Anyone else rolls up on that lion could get his head ripped off, but she can actually
absolutely.
lay on him like a stuffed animal
Yeah,
and cuddle in his mane and play with him. She likes
yeah.
that because it's like she's getting all the protection from the lion, but she's not afraid of the lion. And
Hmm.
there is an element of fear, but it's not a scared fear, it's a reverent fear. And
It's
this
a
is why I
it's a
explain
it's like it's almost just like the potential for
respect.
danger.
Yes, yes,
It's like
100%.
it's attractive that I know he's capable of that
Yes. And
because
that he
that
has
helps her feel
boundaries.
safe. Yeah,
When a man
but
says,
you never want that directed at you either. And I think you never want to direct that at the woman. And I say never. There's been times where I've had to draw the line on certain things with my wife. You know, um,
taught to us subconsciously. As much as
well,
we
and
fuss,
it's
we like
usually
knowing that there's a line that
it's usually like with one of my sons, and I've only ever done this maybe 4 times in 13 years of marriage. It's not something that I it's only when I know for sure that I'm right. But like
right.
there was a time with my son where you know basically I was having to be hard on him. He wasn't doing what he needed to do, and it's like if you take this into manhood, you're not going to be prepared for manhood. And my wife was kind of giving me pushback, and they were both arguing
I
with me,
did the same thing.
and I stopped both of them, and I said, "There's one person in this room that knows how to be a man, and it's not you, and it's not you.
Yes.
So if you don't like it, then you're just going to have to go somewhere else. I'm doing this to make it to. I'm doing this because it's my job,
Yes.
And you know, I think in a lot of ways, women make men more complicated than they really are, um, because because they know how complicated they are, and
Right. We
with men,
can't
it's
believe
really,
you're that simple. Like there's no
and
way.
that's why it's like that one post that you referenced, it's like the nothing box.
Yes.
Like, what are you thinking about? I'm literally not thinking
Literally.
about anything. And women are like, no, you can't just not think about anything. And it's like, imagine, like, when your computer is like, has the hourglass just spinning. It's like, as a man, my processor gets overloaded. It's like, there's too many programs running.
Right.
Like, just all I need is like,
Nothing.
just nothing is going
Yes.
on.
Yes.
My brain is catching up, and it was
My
really
husband
funny.
always said that decompress. He
Yeah,
said I need to decompress. and he would just stare at the screen. He'd come in his man chair in his man cave after work, turn the
Yeah.
ESPN on, and just like gloss and decompress.
Yeah. That's how I process things. I mean, as a man, that is how, like, it's almost like sleep is when certain things happen. It's like, I can't be prepared. Like, I have to sleep
Oh,
to
that's
process everything.
good.
As a man, if I've had a lot going on, like, if
It's
it's been
like
a
you
stressful
powered down.
day,
You're like, "Near," but you're still
yes,
awake.
it, and I don't think women can really relate to the fact that, like, our brains get to a point where the glass is full. It's
Mm-hmm.
like saturated. So if it's a good way of thinking about it is like if it's rained a lot and there's no more room in the ground for the water to soak up, it sits on top, right?
Mm.
And so that's when men need to decompress. Is like, if there's water sitting on top of the ground, it means there's no room for it beneath, and the only thing that you can do is just wait until it can soak in.
I
And
love
as a
that.
and as a man, that's kind of where we get, is like, a woman's brain can just go seemingly, as from a man's perspective, seemingly indefinitely. And as a man, I hit a stopping point where there's no more room for any more information. You can't
Yeah.
talk, like, you can't talk to me anymore. Like, I cannot handle one more word. Not one word. And I mean that. I love you. I'll tell my wife, I said, babe, I
He
love
said
you,
not
and
one
I'll
word.
hug her. But if I literally cannot listen to, like, if don't even say goodnight to me, like, don't say anything, just nothing, please. I
I
love you
have
so much.
I have
Please,
that
though.
too. Now that I'm the primary person taking care of the home, I realize that I hit a certain time of day where my brain needs to shut down as far as just kind of recuperate. And it's funny, my daughter could ask me the simplest question, like, "May I have a popsicle?" And I feel like I can't even answer that question.
Yes.
I'm
I'm
just
like,
like, ask me in 10 minutes.
I cannot. Like, I love you so much, but I need you to just shut up. You have to. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but shut up. Just,
I'm gonna read your quote. You said, "Oh my God,
I cannot
the
handle
male
it.
brain." You said, "My mind is like a garage. Everything is in boxes. None of the boxes are touching. Everything is organized and labeled. What's in one box has nothing to do with the other box.
Mm-mm.
What's in another box? My favorite box is the nothing box. When my wife asked me, 'What are you thinking about?' and I replied, 'Nothing,' I literally mean nothing." You said, "My mind is buffering and nothing is happening." I love that
Mm-mm.
you said that when you go through, you finish each box. So you're like, I cleaned out this
Yes.
box, cleaned out this box,
Like,
cleaned out this box.
if we're having an argument, let's talk about when I said this disrespectful thing to you 2 days ago. Let's talk about that, and only that, until it's resolved. And then if you've got 15 things you want to argue about, I will happily work through all 15 of them if you will go through them in order and stop jumping around. It's like trying to put together 15 different sets of Legos at the same time. It's like,
Oh,
how, like, we're never gonna get this Lego
yes,
thing put together if we do it this way, where we're just like, it's
linear.
like, yes, let's tackle
Yes,
them in order. And if you will tackle them in order, I think a lot of men will participate
right.
in those dialogues because they don't like the drama either,
And I
right?
think
But if
too,
it's
we
like,
think out loud too. So instead of getting straight to the
yeah,
point, we're like, well, and then we're going through our process. I think if we were to go through the process first and then be like,
exactly.
instead of saying, let's just talk about it, say, this is what I need.
And I
What it
think a
all
lot
comes
of
down to is
women,
like, this
do
is what
it,
I need.
they argue from a sense of wanting just the catharsis of feeling
Yes,
better
yes,
versus I'm arguing for a
to
purpose,
get a solution. Yeah,
to
it's
get a
true.
solution,
I want to be heard.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to be heard, but at a certain point, a man is going to be like, either let's fix it or stop talking about it. And I
Right.
don't think that's unreasonable.
No, no, you're right.
It's like,
This guy
like,
said
just,
to give it an hour. He said once a week, he had this thing with his wife. Once a week, they had 1 hour to actually like go at problems. So she
hmm
would write it down, and if it couldn't be solved, like all of it had to be solved in 1 hour, because he said, I just could not, like, my bandwidth was not great enough. And so
yeah,
they kept it within that 1 hour. It was like every Thursday or something like that. I actually think that's brilliant.
absolutely. I mean, if you can't do it any other way, then I absolutely think you should schedule time to work on your relationship, because that's one of the things that people, and this is where men need to do a better job, is that they don't like the process of, and women have to change the way they argue and have these conversations, because it's too overwhelming for a man, and a man's just like, I can't do this. I can't jump subjects around. So if you can't argue with me in a way that I can comprehend, then I'm just going to run away. Like, I can't participate in this. Like,
Yes.
you're asking me to do something that I can't do. You're asking
Right.
me to go dunk a basketball, and like, I'm jumping as high as I can, and I'm never going to be able to dunk it. And so,
And
like,
we don't believe that
you
you can't. That we really don't
exactly,
believe that you
you
can't. We're like, you're
you
just
think
not trying.
you're asking us to do something that we're incapable of doing. Like, no, our minds cannot multitask. Like,
Yeah.
and if you think about it from, like, again, if you go back to the primal thing, like, I use this story in another Instagram live that I did not long ago, where like 4 years ago we went to buy a German Shepherd dog, and we were at the breeders, and then we were talking about, what's the difference between a male dog and a female dog, and said, well, the female dogs are way more needy. They want a lot more attention. They're way more involved with the family. They want to be up there with you, all that stuff. Whereas the male dogs, they, they're not, they'll be all about the family as long as there's nothing for them to, if there's nothing else for them to do. But what they want to be out doing is they're out circling the perimeter looking for threats. Okay. And so from a primal level, the way our brains are wired is that when we're in threat detection mode, there's no room for multitasking in
Yes.
threat detection mode.
You have to laser focus.
If you go back to 5,000 years ago on the plains somewhere, right? If you're on guard duty, like, all of your focus is on looking for threats and protecting, right? And so as a man, whereas, the woman is doing multiple things, while the man's out doing that one thing, either hunting or protecting, the woman is maybe weaving a basket and cooking and taking care of a baby. And so, like, I try to disregard all the modern stuff and just be like,
Right.
there's a reason, like, 5,000 years ago we evolved the way that we evolved, or we were created the way we were created. Whatever your belief system is, it still all has the same parallel. Like, there's a reason men aren't good at multitasking.
Yeah.
Because we're really good at laser focusing. If you want, like, there's nobody better than a man. If you want one problem solved and tackled, there's nobody better than you. You want me out there fighting that battle. You
and
say,
also,
I need this done, go do it.
Yeah, this isn't very politically correct, but I've noticed that when I was working outside the home, if there was something stressing me out emotionally, let's say if I had a relationship issue or I was dealing with my children, I was not even present at work. Like, I was here and I was not here. I was not able to, and it used to actually make me upset when it'd be time to go to work or something, and my husband's like, he just, the switch just turns off, and then he just goes, and I'm like, I wanted to clock out. I didn't want to be there. And with a guy, we need that, because if a guy was like, I'm sad today, and he doesn't go out and get the bag, then we're not paying the mortgage this month. So
and it's not that it's not that men do that on purpose. It's just, that's the only way we know how to function.
Right.
And
You're
I think that's one
box.
it's only one box at a time.
Yeah.
That's all. It's one to the next. It's like, if I'm on guard duty, then I'm going to be on guard. When I'm done on guard duty, I'm going to sleep. I'm not going to still be thinking about guard duty. It's like I'm done. When I'm hunting, once I have the meat, I'm going to lay around and do nothing, and I'm going to enjoy eating the meat. I'm not going to do anything else. Like, and so it's just very much a singular focus.
Yeah.
And I think women expecting men to be any other way than that, you're just always going to be disappointed.
Always.
Like, it's just, you're asking us to do something that, even if we want to, I'll try as hard as I can to multitask with you. I'm just never going to be good at it.
Right.
Like,
right. Give it your best shot. I want to read this. You said, I view everything as a problem to be solved, like a hammer to a nail. Everything I do is geared towards solving all the problems, checking off all the tasks, so I can get to the nothing box and recharge. My mind is either fully occupied by whatever I'm doing, or it's in the buffer mode. That's it. It's a multiple choice test, and those are the only two options. You said, ladies, if he's not paying attention, point it out so you can get his attention, but don't assume it's because he does not care. You said, when a woman multitasks and jumps from topic the topic mid-conversation. It feels like pure chaos has been injected into my brain. When this happens, my mind either shuts off or pushes her away, not because I don't care, but because I legitimately can't function like that. If you want to get
Yep.
the best out of your man, the first thing you need to understand and accept is that he has limitations, and expecting him to think like you is setting him and any relationship up for failure. Don't assume something is bad because it's not what you would assume your partner. Uh, don't assume that something is bad because it's not what you would expect, and assume that your partner has the best of intentions. I was like, slow
Mhm.
golf clap. I want to get
Yeah.
into this advice for ladies really quick, unless you had something you wanted to add to that. Because I had 9 things that I love from your Nourish His Vitality series.
Oh no, go ahead with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to try to like rattle these things off. We're trying to wrap this up in at least 15, 20 minutes if I can. Okay. So, number one advice for ladies, by the way, you guys, when you go to his page, look for the different series. This is Nourish His Vitality, and essentially, Nourish, provide an environment where he can be energized and invigorated. So, remember we talked about that hammer? He's going to that next level, going to the next thing. You want to keep him charged because he's always doing. Masculine is doing, doing, doing. It's purpose driven, it's goal oriented. So if you need your soldier to keep going, you got to keep winding his back up. Okay.
Yeah.
So 9 things. Number 1, do not try to mold him. In every relationship book I've ever read, men and women say this. Do not try to mold him. And I added this, let him be who he is. Either accept him or reject him and leave him alone. Do not come in and think, oh, he's a basketball fanatic, I'm going to turn him into a football. He's a basketball fanatic. Accept it or don't accept it. You want to add
Hmm.
anything on number 1?
I think there's an important distinction there between who he is and his behavior. I think you do need to.
Mm,
I think you do need to mold behaviors.
that's good. That's good.
There's a core part of a human being, and that's where I think a lot of people get lost. Is like,
Yes.
oh, he just is who he is. Like, yes, I'm a basketball person, or I'm a confident person, or I'm talkative, or I'm not talkative, or like there's personality things that you just can't fix, right?
I like that
But then
distinction.
there's behaviors that you need to have expectations of certain behaviors and both directions. Like, if you're married, as a man, let's say you're married to a woman that didn't have a good positive role model as in her life for manhood and doesn't understand men very well or whatever, and so she has like a lot of issues surrounding men, trust issues or whatever. Like, you can't just say, oh, don't try to change me. Like, no, that's an issue we need to work on together. Like, that's not something that's going to be healthy if
Yeah.
if it continues. And so that's the only thing I would add any context to is like, you none of us are perfect. We all have things we need to work on, and so I think it's important for both people in a relationship to feel like they have the freedom to speak to certain behaviors and say, you can't. A lot of men struggle with anger, for instance. Like, that doesn't mean as a woman you should just let him fly off the handle and lose all control.
Right.
Like, that's like him saying, oh, that's just how I am. It's like, no, that's a behavior
What
that
would
can
you
be corrected.
what would you say about slovenliness? Let's say a woman meets a man and his car is like you could use a rake to clean the crap off the floors, or she goes to his house and it looks like it hasn't been dusted. Would you
I
call that
think
a
it's
character or behavior?
I think it's balance. Like, I think it's something where if he's wise, I'm not like that. I'm very meticulous with all that. With you know, you can see my library behind me. Like, I'm very meticulous about everything being organized. But it's like, if he just like one of my sons is just like that. He's not slovenly on purpose. His mind is just on another level. He's
Right.
thinking about other stuff, and he's just not paying attention. Now, can he work on that and get better? Yes, but he's never going to be as meticulous as me. And so I think it's that middle ground of like,
Okay.
don't if he's slovenly, you know, don't expect him to ever get to the point where he's like scrubbing down the the bathtub
The
with a
baseboards.
toothbrush. Like,
Right.
that's never going to happen. But he can get better, and I
Okay.
think that's where a lot of men get discouraged is like a lot of women, and I don't, maybe women feel discouraged too. I can only speak for men where it's like there's issues that my wife has had where I'll make a lot of progress, but it's like until I'm as good at them as her, it's not good enough. And it's like, hold on a second, like, you have to give me room to be like, I can see that you're doing the
Yes.
best you can. Thank you for trying. And because you're willing to try, and put forth the effort that you have, I'll pick up the rest of the slack
Right.
on the things you do leave laying around in the floor.
Right.
If I know that you're trying to make it a priority, instead of always looking for like, oh yeah, he left another thing out. Like, dude, like what you haven't noticed are it's not nearly as dirty as it used to be.
Right.
I used to leave stuff laying around everywhere. I'm really making a conscious effort, but my mind is never going to be as focused on it as yours
Yeah.
is.
And we don't
And so that,
respond well to criticism as opposed to praise. Like praising for what's
yeah,
done versus criticizing what's not done.
yeah. And I think it's just one of those things where it's like you want to work on each other's weaknesses and stuff and be vocal about those things, but you don't want to do it to the point where
They're
like
crushed.
not only that, but it's like that's what she might bring to the table is orderliness.
Mm.
And maybe that's what he need that maybe that's a role he just needs you to be helpful with
Oh,
instead of resenting it. Like as long, I'm not saying be his servant. I'm
right.
saying he needs to make progress on that, but at the same time, whatever is left over that he hasn't perfected, like don't resent the 30% of the cleanup that you still have to
And
do.
remember, you have yours where he's doing the other
Exactly. And
30%.
so it's more of like it's about how you look at it. Like either you
Hmm.
can get mad that they're not exactly like you, or you can say, you know what, this is what value I bring to the relationship as I make it more
Mm.
orderly.
I
You
love
know,
that. I really like that. And there was something else that goes along with um this was for later, but I'm going to read it now. You said, don't only give negative feedback. If it feels like nothing is ever good enough for you, he will give up. Motivate him, challenge him, and inspire him to get out of his comfort zone. So I'm going to come back into that because I had a question about that. I'm going to jump into number 2. This is advice for ladies who want to have a man who is energized and invigorated. Number 2, allow yourself to be vulnerable, even if he fails. Vulnerable meaning trust him. He will learn through his mistakes, and don't shame or punish him for failing at something. I like to give the ladies the example. If you're driving in the car and you are sure that you're supposed to turn right, but he's sure you're supposed to turn left, and it turns out it really was right. You have two choices. You could be like, I told you,
yeah,
or you could let him figure it out, and you don't have to be Captain Obvious. He knows that he messed up. And that's a
yeah,
very shameful thing in and of itself, just having to admit you're wrong, even if you don't say it out loud.
hmm,
Everyone knows you're wrong. But he will also remember next time it's a right. So would you rather have him crushed, or what is the end goal? Because we all learn by mistakes, and
yeah,
so if we feel like we've all had that boss, right, where you could not make any mistakes and they are rushing to your desk or sending you some nasty email, it's like, can I have a little bit of grace to mess up? Because
hmm,
I haven't been doing this for 20 years like you, sir. You know,
yeah,
do
yeah,
you want to add
exactly.
to that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the context of that particular part, the reason I wrote that is that, it seems like, a lot of women have trust issues, justifiably, have trust issues. They've been let down by men. They've trusted a man, and he didn't step up the way that he should have. And,
Right.
and those are all, I mean, those things really happen. And I think, I don't think women are wrong to feel that way. But once you're in a relationship with somebody, like, no, he's never going to be perfect at protecting you, um, simply because, I don't always even realize that it's something you need protection from. Like there's a lot of
Mm,
situations that like I just might not even realize that in
right.
that moment you needed me to be strong, and I was zoned out. And so I think it's important to realize that if you're looking at a relationship, like let's say you just got married or you've been married for a couple of years and it's like, I'm going to stay married forever. Okay. You don't want it to be something where like, oh, I'm going to be strong and independent, and then I'm going to throw him some crumbs and see as like
Mm,
a test if I can trust him, but like expecting him to fail. Like,
yes.
yep, I knew I couldn't trust you. I knew that you
Self-fulfilling
weren't going to be
prophecy.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like you've got to keep trusting him. Like it's going to take him time to learn what makes you feel anxious, what makes you feel unstable, and so there's a lot of stuff to where like I don't I don't necessarily even see it in the moment as something that you need me to step up about. And so I think over the long term, if you want to be with a man that is trustworthy, that protects you, that's stable and stuff, like, you're going to have to get through the times where he wasn't stable and he wasn't trustworthy and he wasn't protective, as long as you feel like his heart's in the right place,
Yeah,
right? Like,
that's so
um,
key. Being able to see that he's
feel
genuinely
like his heart's in the
trying.
right place. Yeah. And just being able to get to a point where it's like, you failed me and you let me down, but it wasn't on purpose. It doesn't mean I can't trust you. It just means you had something to learn. And like, as long as you feel like he's learning from that, then you have to keep putting yourself out there until he learns how to trust. And instead of getting mad, saying, hey, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling a little, unsafe, or, whatever word you want to describe it as, because in this situation, what I needed was this, and you did this. Next time, will you do it this way?
Right.
You know what I
And
mean?
I like that
Instead of
where
being like, I knew I
it's
couldn't trust you, and I
it's
knew whatever, it's like,
right,
help
right.
teach me how to be there for you, because I might be protecting you about the wrong things, you know?
And I love that, the instruction part, because again, men are goal oriented. So, and I always use this example of a boy, but I don't want it to be in a patronizing way. But if
No.
you look at yourself almost as a mother for the women, you're teaching this little boy, like if you're a mom teaching a little boy, you don't want it to be scold, scold, shame, shame. You want it to be,
Yeah.
okay, I saw you made an effort, but actually we're going to do it this way. Thank you for
Yeah.
trying to make mommy breakfast, but if don't turn the oven on or whatever. So in that same way, if you can have that compassion where you say, babe, I absolutely love that you tried to surprise me and do this for
Yeah.
me. I actually hate surprises. So in the future,
Yeah.
maybe we could do this. You're still thanking him for the effort. He's getting brownie points
Yeah.
for the effort. And you're acknowledging his heart. I know you have such a sweetheart and you meant this. Or let's say he forgot your birthday altogether. Babe, I know you
Yeah.
love me. You showed me all throughout the year how much you love me. Just so you know, my birthday is very sentimental. And then he's
Yeah.
going to go, okay, note to self, make sure I don't ever miss a birthday, because maybe his other girlfriends were like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think women would be very well served to realize that when it comes to anticipating your needs, I think a lot of women, they view it as like, well, I'm not going to give him instructions because I'm going to see how he handles it as like a test.
yes,
And it's like, I'm going to fail you 100% of the time.
because
Like,
the
you
movies
need,
say you know how
when
to read our brains. That's what we learn.
it's like, when it comes to knowing what your needs are, you need to assume we are really done, because we're just not, like, even when I'm trying as hard as I can, like, I can't go work and be thinking about you at the same time the way that you would, so like, if I'm busy at work in the middle of a big project and happens to be your birthday, I need you to say, hey, put this on your calendar on
Right.
Tuesday, it's my birthday, here are some things that I like, you know and
Yes.
like, and just like, you need to assume that we're like, you have to really basically dumb it down for us, because we're not as complicated as women are. And a
Yes.
lot of women, like, they judge how much I care about you by how complicated I can be. And
No,
it's
it's
just like,
so true. I really thought, and I can laugh about it now, but I'm
yeah,
saying this to my younger ladies, or maybe the older that just never got this. He is not loving you because he's not being like the guy in the rom-coms. I
yeah,
genuinely thought like that my husband would just know what to say, know what to do. And so I would be waiting. Like there was this unspoken script in my mind. This is where he does this. This is where he does this. And when you see women get together, let's say there's like 4 or 5 women and it's just the one husband there, right? The husband might do a blunder and all the women at the same time go and clutch it, because they
yeah.
all are linked. They're synced in
Well,
that they're
I'll,
like,
I'll give you a really practical example and I think this will really illustrate for the people listening. So about 10 years ago, while my wife and I were asleep, somebody like broke into our house and walked into our bedroom, and it woke my wife up, and he just goes, I'm sorry, and left. And Lauren, my wife, started screaming, and I jumped up and I grabbed my knife and chased, but by the time that happened, he was gone. Right. So,
oh my
um,
God.
and we had 2 young kids, like our youngest son was like 6 months old, so she was freaking out about the babies and like, and all this stuff. And so for me, I went and I checked it. Well, the garage door was still open. I think it went halfway down and the sensor left it back
Yes.
up, whatever. But, based on him saying, I'm sorry, and the fact that he just left, like he didn't steal anything, nothing was broken. I honestly think he was drunk and just walked into the wrong house. Okay.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. That's actually kind of funny.
No, but I mean, we lived in a neighborhood. It wasn't that nice.
Yeah.
We didn't have much money at the time,
We had a guy like that.
And
he was
so
high, and he came in, and he was
for me,
like,
it was just like, oh, it was an accident, whatever, right? Well, as the week went on, my wife kept getting more and more mad at me, and this is when we were really early on in our marriage. She kept getting more and more mad at me that I didn't care that somebody had broken in and I hadn't. And so, but she didn't tell me. Like a week went by, and she just kept progressively getting more and more distant, right? And so after like a week, she was like, I finally was like, what is going on? Why are
Right.
you mad at me? Because to me, it was just a one and done
it
thing.
was over with. Yeah.
Like it was an accident. The guy left. No big deal, right? Like it was a big deal. I understand it was
Right.
scary. But like if he wanted to do something bad, we were both asleep. He could have. He would have stolen something. So to me, it was over and done with. Well, like a week later, she said, obviously you don't care about taking care of our family, because if you would have, you would have got an alarm system and you would have put deadbolts on the door and all this stuff. And I was like, I had no idea you were feeling any of that. And so the
Yeah.
very next day, like I had, the very first thing I did was I put deadbolts on the door. I got an alarm system. Like I did everything that she asked me to do, and I did it willingly. I just didn't know I didn't know I needed
You
to
didn't know
do
that was
that.
the expectation.
And
Yeah.
she was expecting me to just know to do it. Like her viewpoint on it was like, how do you not know to just
Yes.
do that for me,
Yes.
that I don't feel safe? And it's like, my perception of the event was very different than yours.
Yeah.
And neither one of us, I feel like, was right or wrong. I completely, once she explained where she was coming from, I was like, wow, if I would have known you were thinking that,
And it
that
goes,
makes total sense. Like, I don't blame you at all for thinking
Right.
that. It just didn't cross my mind, right? And so
right.
that was a really practical example of a lot of times I think women are robbing themselves of the opportunity to get their needs met
Right. Just open your mouth.
just by not communicating.
Yeah.
Like, babe, I'm having a lot of stress. I can't stop thinking about this dude breaking in. I feel insecure. I feel unsafe.
Mhm.
I need you to go put, like, please, we got to put deadbolts on the doors. We got to put locks, make sure all the windows are locked. We got to make sure the garage is shut, put down every
Right.
time. We need to get an alarm system. Like, as a man, like, as soon as she communicated to me that those were her needs,
Take action.
I immediately
Yeah.
went and got it done the very next day, because she is a priority. But
Right.
if you don't, you have to give him a chance to show you that you're a priority, because a lot of times it's like you're setting us up for failure by
Yes.
just like, oh, if I really am a priority, he'll know to just do it. And it's like,
And it
I mean,
also,
that's just not.
that has to be so hard to hear as a man, especially a
Yeah, I
masculine
felt
man,
terrible.
where it's like
Yeah,
the thought that is even crossing her mind that you don't care, which is could be
absolutely.
further from the truth. And this is
Yeah,
why I think it's so important that we have these conversations, especially early in relationships, because I deal with couples a lot, is that our words can be very damaging. Even though she's not looking at it as attacking you, a lot of the way we naturally communicate is in attack. So this is a perfect example to unpack. Instead of her even speaking to, I say it's speaking to the character. Leave the person's character completely alone, because that is not something that you have access to. Only God knows what is happening in his heart. Even he doesn't know in his heart deeply, because the
don't
heart.
judge their
Don't
judge
judge
their
them.
motives.
Don't even
I
speak
think
to the motives.
I think that's the biggest thing I would say women need to understand about men is you cannot judge his motives by yours.
Your criteria, yeah. And if you never say that, because the attack, the sting is you don't care. That's an accusation. And so I always tell couples, don't make any accusations. Simply speak to your need. So the conversation could have been, hey, and we're not obviously attacking your wife. This is just a great example. But we're saying she could have said, I don't feel safe. Can you do this? It's the same end result, but now there isn't all the frustration and all the pain. And so what happens is a lot of times somebody will lob an attack. It's not just the woman always, but someone will lob an accusation. And because the person is being offended, their energy is now going to the offense and the defending, as opposed to the energy could have been gone to doing the task.
You're gonna be going in a cycle one way or the other. You can either get into a cycle of pointing fingers and circle downward, or you can get into a cycle of pointing in the mirror and circling upward.
Yeah.
and that's
or
your
pointing at
choice,
the
you know.
or pointing at the solution. Like, it's like,
Yeah,
this is what I
yeah.
need, because like you said, either he just doesn't get it, or it could be that somebody forgets. But if you
And
understand that,
here's the thing. There's a lot of things that women do the same
that
way
you
that they
don't,
don't get it,
yeah,
but
you won't
women
point it out.
men don't feel safe to point it out because women just get immediately defensive
Yes,
about
yes.
how dare you, you know. And so women do it just as often. But I know in my marriage, it's like women have no compulsion to hold back on what they think is going on with the dude.
I
You
think
know,
because we don't
like
think that
it's
you're
like
going to be
every
affected
instance that
emotionally.
I mean, I don't know that it's an emotional thing. It's just like it'll make us write you off. I don't know that it's gonna, you know, a masculine man isn't gonna like, oh, poor me. He's just gonna be like, I'm not putting up with this. Like,
Right,
either be reasonable or go to the other room. Like,
right.
I'm not gonna sit and have you beat me up before I even have a chance to talk.
Yes.
Like, no,
And I think
I
we
would,
nitpick.
I wouldn't let a dude beat me up and just stand there and take it. Like,
Right.
if you have a masculine man, he's not gonna sit and just be like beat up. Now, if you're going to throw stuff at him, then you better be ready for him to throw stuff back at
Because
you,
I
one way or
hate
the other.
hypocrisy.
Yes, but more than anything else, a man is going to completely reject you if you're expecting a double standard where if you feel like you have permission to correct all the things that you want, but he can't speak the same back to you,
Mm-hmm.
then I think a lot of men would be way more open
Yes.
to being corrected
Yep.
if they felt like they had the freedom to also correct back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's
Because
true.
there's a lot of things that men would want their wife to work on or get
Yeah.
better at or whatever, but they don't feel like the woman is open to it, or
Yep. Or they'll
they're,
break
they're
out
going
in
to be
tears.
responsive or
Yeah.
whatever, you know. It's like, and so it's very easy for it to break down into this cycle of like the woman is just, you know,
Yeah.
pointing the finger at the man all the time, and the man doesn't feel like he can reciprocate that, and so he's just going to, you know, if he's not a very masculine man, you're going to deflate him.
No,
If
I
he
had a
is a
couple
very,
like that. He literally, his
yeah,
posture was like this. Deflated
hmm,
is the best word. He looked
yeah,
like he had PTSD. And I do the initial
yeah.
intake separately. I will talk to the man separately and the woman separately so that they could feel free to speak. And it was like pulling teeth getting him to even say anything. And it was almost like, is
Because
she
he'd
is she
never
out of the
felt
frame?
safe to
Yes,
he never felt safe to speak up that any of his needs were ever going to be listened to.
yes,
And so a man's going to typically go to one or the other. He's either going to be deflated
yep,
or he's going to be completely walled off and just be like, I'm done with you.
yes.
Like,
And she
but
couldn't
the
understand why he
idea
was
that he's
shutting
just going
down.
to, the idea that he's just going to patiently tolerate that double standard,
Yes.
it's not going to happen.
When we were asking
Yeah.
them during the mutual one, to express things, when she was sharing his stuff, he's just kind of thoughtful, like, okay, just listening to her speak. As soon as I shifted this, okay, now let's get into yours. All of a sudden, it was this body language, it was this, and I had to coach her through it and say, I don't know if you realize this, and it comes out of fear. It's a fear of my husband doesn't think that I'm good enough, so it's this defensiveness, but it comes across as anger and stubbornness.
Well, here's the thing. It's like none of us are good enough. Like like you can be a great person, but that doesn't mean you're a great wife
Right.
because he's the one. Like I can call myself a great husband, but my wife is the one that
Yeah.
defines if I'm good or not. So what another woman might think makes me a good husband, she might have different standards than that
Yeah.
or different priorities than that. And so you need to understand, like, if you want to, you being a good person is a distinct identity from you being a good wife
I
or a good
like
husband,
that. I like that.
you
And to
know. And it's like,
separate.
if you want to, do you want to be a good wife? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That means that doesn't mean that you get to be the kind of wife you want to be.
Yeah.
I'm the one that decides what kind of wife
Yeah.
I need, and vice versa. 100% vice versa. No double standards there.
And be
Like as a
grateful that
man,
he's telling you, because he could be zip-lipped
yeah,
and you have no idea how to please him. And so it's like a secret access, or cheat code, that he's
yeah.
even telling you that. And so understand, you're going to get the best version of your
And
husband.
I think a lot of women would be honestly. I think a lot of women would be really surprised how much their men would be open to feedback and to even criticism or whatever if they just felt like it was a two-way street
Yes.
and that you were just as willing to have to be open to having that reciprocated,
Yeah.
like, I think that's where so many women lose their men, is when there's that, it's only going one direction.
Yeah.
And that, I think women would be really pleasantly surprised if, they said, you know what, I want you to work on this. I want you to be more receptive, or I want you to be a better listener, or whatever the case may be, you know, but if I want you to work on this, it would mean a lot to me. Is there anything that I'm not doing well that would mean a lot to you? Because I want it to be a balance,
Absolutely.
and I think if you conduct it that way, then I think a lot of women would be really surprised how open men would be, and how almost enthusiastic and excited
Yeah.
they would be to build something together with you.
Yes.
Like, what can I work on? You know, what can I work on? And because if I work on this, you're going to work on this other thing that I've been wanting, whether it's like encourage me more, or be more sexual, or be more, give me some peace. Let me have some time in the
Mm-hmm.
nothing box, right? Like,
Right.
whatever it is, like, if I like it's, I mean, at the end of the day, people think, oh, love shouldn't work that way. Like, everything in life is there's got to be something in it for us.
Mm-hmm.
It's either sticks or carrots. There's either, you know, something to gain, or if we're afraid of losing something. Like,
Right.
we all, like, we're not just going to sit and be punished for no reason forever. Like, there's
Right.
got to be a reciprocal element to the relationship. It's not like, oh, if he loves me, he would just put up with it. Like, where did that even come from? Like,
I can't
outside
stand
of
that.
romance, where do we ever even, that's like saying, like, oh, you should just love your job without getting paid. Like, I wouldn't be here. I'm here for the money.
Right.
Like, I'm in a relationship because you add to my life. You make my life better. If you're making my life worse, what's the point of this?
It's 100% facts. It's 100% facts. I definitely think that we have to be more open. Um, okay, so man, I have so much I want to talk about, but we are already
Well, we
over.
can do it again.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, would you be willing to come for a part two, because
Yeah.
this is so good. I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface. We got through two of the nine things. I wanted to go over on the next one your advice for your if you had daughters. That was priceless. But I know if I
I
get
just
into
gave
that,
that. I just gave that advice earlier
oh my God,
to
I
a friend of
loved
ours.
it.
Yeah.
If you guys want
Yeah.
to see part two, comment part two in the comments. I will definitely bring him back on, because literally this stuff, it's meaty. There's so much to unpack, so it takes a while. But I want men to be able to be comfortable with their wives, and I want wives to be comfortable with their men and understand how men are wired. And the part that breaks, I'm going to close with this. The part that breaks my heart is when I see people choose to divorce. It's almost never because they actually hate each other. It's because they've
Mm-hmm.
lost hope that that person is willing to do what it takes to make them happy. And if they even got an ounce of an idea that, you know what, I'm sharing something that's not falling on deaf ears, that would invigorate them. But so many
Yes.
people don't know how to get out of this toxic circle. So it's like this toxic
Mm-hmm.
cycle. You disappointed me, so you know what? I'm gonna hold back, and then you're gonna be disappointed, and then you're more disappointed, and
Yeah.
I'm more disappointed. It just
And what the thing that's helped us the most, I feel like, and this will be the last thing that I say, is ideally you want to go into the marriage and think of it as like, the goal here is to no longer be two distinct entities. We
ah,
we we melt into each
I
other.
love
Like,
that. One flesh,
well, and that's the
the
biblical
biblical.
stance,
Yeah.
but even if you don't happen to be a Christian, it's like, if you think about it, like, like forging something,
Hmm.
like, let's say that you want to be this beautiful sword. Well, you're two different types of metal, and you each have your own impurities and your own
Right.
flaws. And the way that you become a beautiful sword is that you melt into each other, and that means your flaws are you know ironed out, and so the unit has to be a higher priority than the two
Yes.
individuals.
Yeah.
And that means that if there are certain things that I need to sacrifice or change for the sake of this union, both people need to look at it as like, for the sake of us wanting to be this sword, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be willing to sacrifice things like I'm willing to change
Mm-hmm.
and make adjustments,
Adjustments, yeah.
and likewise, because both of us, but both of us have to share that burden equally
Yes.
for the sake of this bigger vision that we both share about what we can be together.
Yeah. I like,
because the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
you know how there's this big thing about pronouns for Instagram, she,
Yeah.
her, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about
Us.
the union as if your verbs were all we, our, us, that would be the way to go. Because if you looked at
Mm-hmm.
it like an entity, just like your baby is outside of you, it's this extension of you. If you look at your union as this separate, almost like a separate entity, you're both
Yes.
pouring into this union, but we both get to receive the benefits of the union. So
Yeah.
we both equally are pouring into this union. But I think a lot of people don't ever see it as that. It's like it's two people who are happen to be in close proximity, but we're actually not this unit.
But you want to hold on to your own individuality more, and it's like, I'm not saying don't be an individual. I am still an individual, but when it
not
comes
at
down
the
to
cost of the
conflict, right? It's like, if you have to ask yourself, if it costs me the unit,
right,
is the individuality worth it?
yes,
And maybe sometimes it is for certain people,
right?
Like, I'm not saying that everything is. I'm just saying you both need to realize that there is something bigger, that you are together, that you are one person.
Yeah.
And something to at least say, is it worth sacrificing maybe a small part of my individuality for the sake of what we can be together? And is that something I feel like he or she is also willing to do in their own way?
Yeah.
It shouldn't just be one side of it.
Absolutely. And that should be flushed out during the dating phase, paying attention to that kind of stuff. Man, I love this. I'm actually impressed. We didn't do too much cutting up.
I know.
All the joking in the DM. I didn't know if we did very well with being very serious this entire time.
Yes.
So
I'm proud of us.
We did it.
I'm proud of us. We made it.
No promises for part 2 though.
Yeah.
So, well, enjoy your program. That's not like 1970s. Enjoy your game that you're watching. At least someone's mom. Yeah. But again, state your channel name so that they can check it out.
Yeah, it's on Instagram at the Wisdom of Kings.
Brian, I really enjoyed it. I see a lot of people commenting part 2. We're going to schedule it. I'll put it in my story so you guys know when it's coming. But this was really, really awesome. I love your heart. I love your family. I was creeping on your page, your family pictures. It's nice to see somebody who is coming in with a godly perspective, who is demonstrating love, demonstrating fatherhood, demonstrating manliness in a non-toxic way. It's really refreshing to see, and I hope that you can inspire many, many people. God bless you. My pleasure. They said save this live. Oh, so let me say this. All my live streams go on YouTube. So make sure you come back and watch it on YouTube. Plus, it's easier to watch it there. You can pause it, whatever. But come back. Just give me a little bit of time to drop it. I have another podcast I'm running into right now, so give me an hour or two, guys. But it'll be there, if anything, by tomorrow. But thank you. Follow him, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
All right.